I think a lot of people are starting to realize that something isn't quite right, but nobody really talks about it. Life hasn't collapsed. Nothing dramatic has happened. On paper, everything looks fine, and maybe that's what makes it unsettling, because you can be doing everything the way you're supposed to, and suddenly realize you might be drifting into a life you never actually chose. And I don't fully understand this feeling yet, but lately it feels less like a personal problem and more like a signal you can't really ignore once you notice it. And for me, that realization shows up every Sunday afternoon. So every Sunday afternoon, I can feel it. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I could be exercising or just eating. Maybe I'm watching a good movie. It's still there. This existential crisis that settles in around 3 or 4 p.m. It's like, where did my life go? How did I end up here? I feel trapped and broken, honestly. And the worst part is knowing that in a few hours, I'm facing another week that will be wasted. And for the longest time, I used to think that it was just me. Like maybe I was just being dramatic or ungrateful or just bad at being an adult. But I don't think that anymore. You see, I've been noticing it more clearly lately, and I've been sort of wondering if maybe it's not about me at all. If maybe there was something about the shape of our days, the structure we've all agreed to follow. It just doesn't quite fit. I don't know. I might be wrong about this, but I wanted to think through this out loud. Oh, and by the way, if this is resonating with you, consider subscribing. More videos like this are on their way. You see, I think that what started all of this, for me at least, was realizing that I simply couldn't answer a simple question. If someone asked me, can you choose how many hours you work? What would I say? I mean, technically, I guess I can choose my job. I applied, I interviewed, I accepted the offer. That was a choice. But once I was in it, once I signed the paperwork and showed up that first day, the actual hours weren't really up for discussion. 8 hours, 5 days. That's how it works. And I get it. That's standard. That's normal. Everyone does it. But I've been thinking a lot about what normal actually means. Like, who decided those numbers? When did we all agree that this was the right amount of time to give away? Now, I had this moment a while back, but I can't stop thinking about. I've gotten pretty good at my job. I figured out systems, streamlined things, automated parts of it, and I got to a point where I could finish everything I needed to do in maybe 3 or 4 hours instead of 8. And I was so proud of that, actually. I thought, okay, this is good. I'm being efficient. I'm getting the same results in less time. So I asked my manager if I could leave early on days when I finished everything. Not every day, but just when the work was done. And as you can imagine, the answer was no. Not because the work wasn't good, not because I wasn't meeting expectations, just because that's not how it works. I had to stay. I had to sit there stretching 3 hours of actual work across 8 hours of presence. And here's what that actually looked like. I would sit at my desk, staring at a spreadsheet, not working on it, just looking at it so it seemed like I was doing something. But when that got old, I would walk out in, the hallway outside where there are no people. And I would just sort of stand there. If there was a window, I would look out the window. And sometimes someone would pass through, so I would pick up my phone and pretend to be on an important phone call, just standing in an empty hallway pretending to talk to someone who didn't exist. It looked ridiculous. It felt ridiculous, but I had to do it because the rules wasn't about output, it was about time. And that's when something clicked for me. It wasn't about the work getting done, it was about the time. They needed the time, my actual output, my results, the quality of what I produced that mattered. But what mattered more was that I was there, like physically present for the agreed upon numbers of hours. But that wasn't the moment that broke me. That actually came much later. You see, I was
On the bus ride home, I don't drive, I take the bus or train, and I've had plenty of terrible jobs, and some were okay, but honestly, all of them were a waste of time, of life, my life. And when you start working in your 20s, you tell yourself that it's just until something better arrives. But then one day, you turn 44, and you're sitting on that bus ride home, and you can just feel it. Like this realization that just crashes over you. Nothing better is coming. This is it. This is my life. It's almost too late to change it at this point. And a question that took me to a dark place was, is life worth this dread, this anxiety, this exhaustion? Now, every morning, I brush my teeth and I look in the mirror, and at first I think, who is that old geezer? And then I realize, oh yeah, it's just me. And I just get so profoundly sad. Like, don't get me wrong, I actually don't have a problem with getting older. I think I'm lucky to experience old age. Not everyone does. But seeing that old face with the wrinkles and the gray hairs, it just reminds me how much time I've spent waiting for something better to come along, and it never did. I started working when I was 14 years old. Part-time jobs at first. My first full-time job was after the university when I was 25, and I'm 44 now, still working. You do the math. I've been thinking about what it means when your time becomes the only thing you're selling. Not your skills or your ideas or your effort, just the hours of your life. And I started noticing this pattern everywhere. Friends who work from home now, they still are expected to be online from 9 to 5, even if their work doesn't actually require that. Even if they finish early, even if there is nothing to do, you just sit there. You're expected to be available. I don't know if this resonates with anyone else, but it feels like we're told we all have this freedom, all these choices, but then when you actually look at how the days are structured, the choices seem kind of narrow to me. Now, you can choose which company, you can choose which role, but the fundamental shape of it, the fact that you have to do this at all, that's not really optional. And here's what nobody talks about. What does choice mean if the alternative isn't actually viable? Like, technically, sure, I could choose not to work, nobody is forcing me, but then what happens? How do I pay rent? How do I eat? How do I access healthcare? Now, it's not force in the traditional sense. Nobody is threatening me, but it's also not exactly freedom, is it? It's structured dependence. So I went down this rabbit hole recently, trying to figure out where all of this started. Not work itself, obviously, but people have always been working, but this specific structure, the 8-hour day, the 5-day week, the whole framework of trading your time for permission to basically exist. And what I found was that a lot of it is actually pretty recent. The 40-hour work week, the weekend, the idea of employment as we know it now, most of that was formalized in the last century or so. There was this thing that happened in England, and I've made videos about this. It's called the Enclosure Acts, basically land that communities have been using collectively for generations, common land where people could grow food or graze animals. That land got privatized, and suddenly it belonged to someone. And if you wanted to use it, you needed permission, you needed to pay. And a lot of people who had been able to sustain themselves, or at least partially, through that common land, they couldn't do it anymore. They had to find other ways to survive, which mostly meant going to work for someone else. It wasn't about people suddenly deciding that employment was better. It was about the alternatives becoming unavailable. Now, this is the part that really makes me angry. You see, I realized that I was basically born and raised into wage slavery. Like, there is no nice way of putting it. Everything from kindergarten to the university, to school loans, to the mortgage, everything was just a brilliant way of getting me hooked for life. And I'm honestly very angry about that. But I am working my way out of it. But then there is this other layer, this idea that if you work hard enough, you can achieve anything, the meritocracy story. And I want to believe that, I really do. But I've been looking around and I don't think it matches reality. So, as an example, my wife works as a social worker. She works incredibly hard. She gives 200%. She's not quite quitting like I am. Her heart is in the right place and she genuinely wants to help people. But she sort of comes home disappointed almost every evening because despite her best efforts, she has to help people through a system that's designed to be efficient at the cost of people. And sometimes she simply can't help. She has to follow the rules. If she breaks the rules, she loses her job. And it's not the money that keeps her working. It's the noble pursuit of actually helping people. She has a very kind heart, but it's sad to see that her best efforts are usually stopped by bureaucracy. She works harder than almost anyone I know, and she's still struggling. Not because she's not trying, but because the system doesn't reward effort the way we're told it does. And then there is the other side. When I was growing up, I had this best friend. He lived on the other side of the school, the nicer side. His family wasn't like super rich, but every birthday, they would put money into a stock account in his name. And then when he was 18 years old, he was essentially a millionaire. And we went to the university together and he got good stakes jobs, at banks, and he made a ton of money, but he was already rich. He never felt what I think that most people feel, that if you don't work, you don't eat pressure. We sort of lost touch after I moved south to be with the woman that I loved, who eventually became my wife. But I sometimes cyberstalk him online, like he's doing great. But I remember just before we went different ways, he did tell me that he didn't like this feeling of having to work to pay the mortgage. And I thought that was very interesting because you say he was rich. Like he could float for several years without working. But knowing him the way I did, I know he never missed a day at work because despite his privilege, he was trained for years in school to be a wage slave. And then there are the lies. I remember this meeting after our company got bought up by a big investment firm, and people were obviously worried. So I remember we gathered in this conference room, and our manager's manager, who worked in a different country, talked to us through a video conference. And this was what he said. I'm going to be transparent with you. The number of positions at your company will not change. And 2 months later, the staff got reduced from 60 to 20 people. So after that, whenever I hear the word transparency, I think bullshit. I'm sorry about the guy behind me. He's cleaning our windows. We pay him to do that. So here's what I wish I could say to my manager, the raw truth with zero consequences. What I would like to tell my manager is that I'm only here for the money. I don't care about this company. I don't care about my coworkers, and I don't care about my boss. This place could burn down to the ground overnight. My only concern would be how it would affect my salary. And that's how little I care about work. And here's the thing that nobody talks about. You see, I always believed that doing good at your job would reward you. And I think that we all subconsciously believe that. It's the wage slave programming from school, the gold stars from the teachers. But as I started my career, I noticed the complete opposite. The more good work you do, the more work you have to do, not less. It's just more, right? And that's why I'm such a big believer in quiet quitting. And some people think it's just a hack for lazy people, but it's not. It's a way to make sure that they never use you more than the minimum. You see, I think that a career is a wasted life. I made a video about this. And I don't think that people who gave everything to their careers lie on their deathbeds thinking that they did great. You see, most older people I've met have said that they wish that they had worked less. And I think that this lie is just devastating. It not only takes most of people's lives, but it gives so many people terrible regrets that they spent most of their lives doing something that never mattered. And there is this horrifying saying that I can't get out of my head. The only people who remember you worked overtime 20 years from now are your kids. So I've been asking myself, okay, if this is how I feel about it, what do I actually do? And I don't have a clean answer, I don't have some master plan or perfect solution, but I've been trying some small things, experiments, I guess you could say. I started learning video editing just on YouTube, like free tutorials, nothing fancy. Although I do have a YouTuber course if you're interested. But the point is, I didn't have like a grand vision. I just thought this is a skill that exists outside the permission structure of my job. Nobody has to approve me learning this. Nobody can take this away. And so then I started making things. And my first video was of me opening and closing a refrigerator. No words, just that's. And it's got a few clicks, but it eventually got me excited to do more. And eventually, after testing different things, I found my true calling, talking about the 9-to-5 and wage slavery, this stuff. And for months, nothing happened, like financially speaking. But then I made my first dollar, not 12, just one single dollar from an Amazon affiliate link that I have put under a video. And I didn't even tell anyone to click on it. It was just there. And when I saw that $1, something shifted in me because I realized that if I can make $1, I can make 10. And if I can make 10, I can make 100. There's really no limit here. You just have to work smart, not more. And this just doesn't happen at work. No matter how hard you work, you will never earn 10 times as much. But here, the ceiling does not exist, but the money is actually only half the picture. You see, I think that, and a lot of people in the comment section have told me this, and I agree with them, that if you only do it for the money, it's just another job. But when you make an authentic video where you share something personal and deep about yourself, and you get that comment from someone who tells you, you just said what I felt all my life, and that's when you realize that you're doing something that matters more than money. Something from my childhood woke up. You see, when I was a kid, I would make creative things. I was very, very creative as a kid. But when I started working, I became this dull, machine-like person. And making videos awakened a side of me that I thought that I had forgotten or lost. And ever since, I haven't been able to let it go. You see, I love what I do here on YouTube, and I don't care if some people find that silly. I'm gonna do this until the day I die. So I kept the job, obviously, I had to. Bills don't just stop because you have an existential crisis about employment, but I stopped believing it in the same way. I stopped tying my identity to my job title. And I remember that there was this little contest at the office. Whoever brought in the most clients or made the most money for the company would win Employee of the Month. I'm sure you've seen similar things at your place. And the winner would get free movie tickets. Movie tickets. That's it. That's what I would get if I did over and beyond for the company. I could make a hell of a lot more just making a 5-minute video. And it would be for me. And it would feel more like me than anything I ever did at work. So after that, I just stopped listening altogether. I was done being the teacher's pet. I spent more than 20 years trying to get validated by others. I don't want to do that anymore. And slowly, very slowly, this side thing, it kind of grew. And I remember this video I made where I was reviewing an alarm clock, and it took just 5 minutes to make. And this video has generated $10 every single month for the past 10 years. I don't even remember what I said in the video, but still, if you think about it, that's $1,200 from one old video. Now, my last video took about 2 hours to make, and it generated $400 in 3 days. Now, in January this year, 2026, for the first time ever, my business earned me double of what I make at my job. Double. That's a real milestone. And it's not bragging, it's just proof that my dream isn't only possible, it's starting to happen. And here's what I've realized. The biggest wall that most people believe in is that you have to trade your time for money, that only through a job can you earn. But since I discovered that you can make money online, I just kept pushing that wall every week, making more content, testing things. And now I would say that that wall has completely disappeared in my life. And it's funny, I often meet people who sort of brag how much money they earn at work, managers and specialists. And when I compare what I make with my extra income from YouTube and other passive income streams, it's not that I just make more, but it's also that I make more much easier. Like, my income doesn't require me to sit in front of a computer every day. Now, sure, there is hard work, but it's mostly effective work. So, like I've said before, if I got fired tomorrow, I would honestly be happy. Honestly. Like, I would have no choice but to work on my business and make it work. Now, financially, I'm covered. We have savings, and also here in Sweden, you have some kind of social coverage. So it's not a big deal to lose your job. And yet people worry about getting fired all the time. But here's the sort of scary part that nobody really mentions. You see, I'm kind of completely alone building this business, and I love it. I love doing everything by myself, not having to answer to a boss or a colleague. It's full freedom. It's full autonomy, right? But there are moments when I feel that maybe I'm lost, like nobody can check on what I do and say that I'm doing the right thing. Like, there is no teacher here, there is no boss here. But I sort of go with my gut feeling, my intuition, and so far, it's been working great. And the more I listen to my intuition, the better I do. Everything about my business sort of goes against everything that wage slaves do. Just the idea of recording yourself in front of a camera, or spend hours editing, or doing your own accounting, it's kind of crazy behavior in a way. And it's something that most people would never do. But you know what I've realized? Doing everything the opposite of normal is what's making me more successful and more happy than I've ever been. And what keeps me up at night sometimes is that most people will never experience this out of fear of going against the norm. And I suppose that's why I make these videos. So I keep coming back to that Sunday afternoon feeling, that existential crisis that settles in when you're looking at your week ahead and you're trying to remember what you're doing any of this for. Now, I used to think that feeling meant that there was something wrong with me, that I needed to be more grateful, more mature, more adjusted to adult life. But I don't think that anymore. Like, I think maybe it's just an honest response, a signal that something about this whole arrangement doesn't quite fit, And I think the most dangerous thing, it isn't the structure itself. You see, humans have lived under all sorts of structures. What's dangerous is believing you chose it when you didn't, believing that you're free when the alternative is starvation, believing that the walls are necessary because they might be just habitual. Now, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm trying to figure out what I actually believe underneath all the things that I've been told to believe. And what I keep landing on is this. The door might not be locked. We might have more options than we think. The framework might be more flexible than it appears, but you have to stop treating it as permanent to find out. So my best advice that I could give, let's say my 22-year-old self, is this. The fear of what other people think about you is the biggest chain that's keeping you from being happy in life. Until you stop caring what other people think, you'll never be happy. I truly believe that. Now, I'm working my way out of the system that raised me, and I'm doing it by basically doing everything the opposite of what normal people do. As always, thank you for listening. Do me a favor and tap that like button to show your support. Subscribe if you're interested in more content like this. Until next time, stay hungry, relentless, and strong in your journey of escaping wage slavery. Bye.